Morning, everybody. Everything new under the sun. I think the next big events coming down the pipe and shaping up, converging, kind of getting ready to happen and coming into focus are the four horsemen of the apocalypse. I don't think they're riding yet. I think this is all the stage setting, and it's significant stage setting. I mean, the curtains are about to be drawn. This is about we're about there, I think, and the major one of the major things I see is the economic collapse, and I think the world economy is well on the way there. That's in terms of overall debt and also supply chain issues that are causing that, the status of interest rates, and the status of general currency around the world, and the fighting by the big nations to become the next world reserve currency. Well, the question is, um, when is the big one? And I'm not talking about earthquakes, but when is the next financial earthquake? And I think we have an idea of where that's going to come. Let's go to this article here. Zero hedge again. China has financial nuclear bombs. If the West levies Russia-style sanctions, Beijing warns. So, of course, we don't want China to take over Taiwan. And if they do, China expects that the Western world, indeed, all the world currently is going against Russia in terms of sanctions. And if you don't sanction Russia, if your company doesn't sanction Russia, you're kind of canceled. You're kind of blacklisted. You're not following towing the line, following the party line. You need to sanction Russia if you care anything about the Ukrainians, and so there's a lot of pressure for the big companies to go against it, where otherwise they may not have. But the same thing is going to happen with Taiwan. China knows it. China's testing the waters, and they know what could occur if the world levies sanctions against them. And the biggest problem is China is the country that could bring down the whole economic system, because they are basically the manufacturing hub of the world for all intents and purposes. And so they, if they choose to invade Taiwan, they could threaten U.S. and the Western world with cutting off supply chains, which is happening right now in Shanghai. We'll talk about that. Multiple analysts at Chinese state-linked think tanks and banks have weighed in on the Biden administration's recent threats to punish the world's second largest economy over China's refusal to condemn Russia's war. So U.S. is coming out and threatening China. If it's not already bad enough, they're poking the bear in the eye, threatening Russia with even more, and even bragging really about helping Ukrainians command and control, maybe even the taking out of the flagship of the Russian Black Sea Fleet. And they're bragging about this. And if that's not a declaration of war, I don't know what is. And now, the U.S. is threatening China. Well, so they're threatening recent threats to punish the world's second largest economy over China's refusal to condemn Russia's war in Ukraine. And of course, we know Russia and China are working together. And amid U.S. charges that it could be helping Moscow evade sanctions. Now, China is taking this opportunity. This is a great half-price sale, if you will, on Russian oil, Russian grain. If the world isn't buying it, then China is happy to take all that stuff and stockpile that stuff. They're getting a great deal on it. Meanwhile, the rest of the world is heading into economic collapse, and it's we're trying to sanction Russia, but at the same time, and even Biden admitted that effectively this is going to hit us as well, the U.S., Canada, all Western nations. In many ways, a significant amount, as hard as it's hitting Russia because of gas prices. It is necessary to speed up the construction and external connection of the cross-border yuan clearing system, SIPS. This is to get away from SWIFT and the other, the Western banking systems that are set up. However, China is taking and taking note and studying its own preparedness and future options in the wake of the drastic U.S. measure of freezing Russia's central bank assets overseas. This huge, the huge foreign exchange reserves are hard won, and they are China's financial nuclear bombs with a powerful deterrent. Again, I said before, we don't have to have a conventional war by any stretch. Even, I think, cyber war at this point is kind of old fashioned. All these countries need to do is wage economic war and deliver weapons of economic mass destruction. And China now has the weight to be able to do that. And China is no friend of the U.S. China is currently friend of Russia. They're helping Russia. They don't want to come out and overtly say that they're supporting Russia in everything, but they obviously are with their actions. Buying Russian oil, not going along with the sanctions against Russia, etc. And what does China do or want to do? They want to be the next world reserve currency. So you know what? They need to get U.S. out of the way. Well, how do they do that? One easy way is to take their economy out. Now they don't want to do it overtly because we don't want to trigger a conventional nuclear war, but they can do it with mass weapons of mass economic destruction. And China does have that firepower. Russia not so much. Russia has more conventional war strength. China has economic strength. So along with that, and this is the big thing to worry about. This is the big one. When China decides that's it, we're going to use our weight, our manufacturing, our supply chain, access to the Western world, to the U.S., to bring it to its knees simply by stopping the transfer of goods and services. And China has been stockpiling food and gas and oil, energy for many years now. Excuse me. For many years now, they've been stockpiling it. So they're ready for economic sanctions. And at the same time, coincidentally, Shanghai intensifies lockdown as Xi Jinping insists on zero COVID. This is KRDO.com, apparently from a CNN news source. Shanghai is further tightening its stringent lockdown measures as China's top leader, Xi Jinping, pledged to unswervingly double down on the country's controversial zero COVID. Now, of course, if you listen to Dr. John Campbell, he believes that it's impossible to have zero COVID at this point with Omicron. It's so transmissible. There's no way you're going to stop it. And it's going to continue to go on around. It's endemic now. So you got to ask the question. A, is there a more serious strain or combination with avian flu or some other even more deadly virus going around in China that we just don't know about yet, and they're keeping it under wraps, and that's why they're in lockdown? Because Omicron is not a threat anymore to anybody, really. It's no more a threat. It's less a threat than flu. And flu kills a lot of people every year. But Omicron is much less a threat than flu at this point. So is it a more serious, a deadly strain of some other virus, possible another pandemic? Or are they using it as a guise to slow down the supply chain with the U.S., to put pressure on the U.S., to remove sanctions from Russia because its economy is hurting by the supply chains? This zero COVID thing doesn't make any sense. And the fact that it's in the big port city of Shanghai, one of the major port cities, you got to ask the question, what's going on? What are they doing? Are there geopolitical aims at this? And is it something greater than just a health emergency, as they call it? Over the weekend, videos showing Shanghai residents arguing, scuffling with hazmat suit-clad workers and police officers while being forcibly taken away for government quarantine circulated widely on Chinese social media. Many have been since removed by censors after sparking public anger. The outcry comes as authorities appear to have walked back efforts to ease restrictions in parts of the city, despite a drop in new infections, as local officials come under pressure to curb community transmission of the virus. Under the new policies, even residents with negative tests can find themselves placed in a centralized government quarantine. This is effectively martial law and quarantine camps and centers. According to social media posts and local government sources circulating online, in several parts of the city, entire apartment blocks have been deemed a health risk, with all occupants forced from their homes and placed into quarantine on the back of one positive case. So again, is this the next big pandemic that they're, is it simply Omicron that they're waging war against? It doesn't make any sense at this point. There's nearly no no effect on the overall death numbers of a country at this point. It's no different than flu. So what's going on is, I guess, is the question. You need to answer that for yourself. It's a curious situation, something to think about. But again, are they using this as a proxy to put pressure on the U.S. to keep U.S. at bay, to say, you know what, we could stop the supply chain anytime if we march into Taiwan and you attempt to put sanctions on us, we're going to kill your supply chain. You won't be able to make any more products. Have you went to your drove past your local car dealerships? Are there many cars on the lot? No. That's because there's a shortage of chips. Where do a lot of the chips come from, or the components to make the chips? Well, China. And so all the shipping, this whole supply chain thing is just tanked. It stopped because of quote unquote zero COVID from China. All right, this is the big one. I do believe, to kind of finish it up, to wrap it up. When China decides to go rather economically nuclear, and it's probably going to coincide with some march on Taiwan. This, I believe, is going to be the trigger, the cause of the next economic collapse, which I think happens during the 7-year period. One of the forces from the apocalypse. I think it's describing maybe when China decides to do this. So this is something to watch out for. Russia was not a sideshow, but it was a warm-up. As with everything, in all these patterns with COVID and everything, there's always a warm-up period where things are being tested out, tried. We'll see how this goes, with the masks. And, what they did with the masks, they put them in once or twice, and then they put them in for a long time. This is all a warm-up. Russia's a warm-up. It's a test. See, dip your toes in the water, see how the nations of the world react. And then all the countries reorganize around basically the reactions of all the other countries. And then the next bigger one, twice the size, 5 times the size, whatever it may be, comes down the road even worse. And 2022 gets even worse. So be prepared. Also, remember, today is Monday, May 9th. This is supposedly the day when Russia is going to declare a war in Ukraine so that they can do conscription for troops, so they can bring their whole army, so they can quote unquote legally within their own country bring their whole army to bear against Ukraine and maybe really get the job done. And that's what Putin would like to do. So we'll watch for news on that. If you watched last week, the markets tanked. I don't know what it was, Thursday, Wednesday, when Dow Jones was down 1,200 points in a day. And so the markets, again, are getting fluttery. You look at the price of diesel, $2.50 a liter, where I am for diesel, Canadian. $2 a liter Canadian for regular fuel, gasoline. And this ultimately is going to significantly cause prices of food, anything that's shipped, to increase a lot. Food prices will increase. Inflation increases across the board because everything moves or somehow uses fuel. Wait till winter season comes and see how many people aren't going to be able to afford all of a sudden their heating oil. What are they going to do then? Everybody's moving to heat pumps, which is electricity. And what happens when the electric companies want to get in on the deal and say, you know what, we need diesel and gasoline to repair and manage and keep the electricity flowing. So we're going to raise our rates as well. And then all of a sudden people won't be able to heat their houses. So there's a lot of things coming down the pipe. This is a gear up. This is a warm up. This is a stage setting for the next step or the next stage in the game, which is far worse. So be prepared, folks. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next video.